Yeah, about that other setup. Yeah, no. We're going to go back to what we good at. Okay, so the next chapter is From the Waist Down. No matter how drunk you get, don't count the guys you meet at the club and sleep with the very same night as a potential husband. It'll never happen. I'm trying to remember who this is, but I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, who was looking for a husband? We came to party, which is why Wanda, Violet, and I, all underage and relying on fake IDs to get us into the club, were dressed in hot pink and orange and silver hot pants to make sure the fellas wouldn't miss our curvy behinds or our A to D cup cleavage in those thin, tight tank tops. Our white platform boots with fake goldfish in those acrylic heels also didn't hurt us any, which is why when we strolled toward the back of the long line, freezing our asses off, we pretended not to have any idea how good we looked and had the nerve to act surprised when the fellas started checking us out. And hey girl, and hey baby, and wink wink, and please let me be your man. The big bouncer strolled down the line reviewing all the girls like this was the Westminster Kennel Club dog show. And by the time he got to us, he said, "Y'all cover charge has been covered." Some of the girls left outside looked at us like they wanted to kick our asses. We strutted right on past them. We never paid when we wore these get-ups. And I, the only one not drowning in department store cologne samples, rubbed a dab or three of oils I brought and occasionally stole from the health food store, meant to lure and intoxicate a fella or at least make him curious enough to ask, "What's that you wearing? You smell good, girl." I remember that as soon as I heard the first few chords of Get Down Tonight, I jumped up from my chair and ice skated out onto the dance floor and started boogieing by myself. And before I could sit down, Boogie on Reggae Woman ran right into it. And then the hustle. And that's when this tall, black, handsome fella walked out and just started doing a bump with me. "You sure smell good," he said, looking down at me, and I looked up, smiled as innocently as possible, and said, "Thank you." Violet was dancing with an android, and Wanda said she remembered this like it was yesterday because no one had asked her to dance, and that's because she looked like she was mad about something. When I want to do something freaky to you started in, the strobe lights were just spinning away, and I kept on dancing. And finally he said, "I'm Abraham, and who might you be?" "Georgia," I said, and ordered my hips to give him one strong bump, then left him out there and strutted on back to my empty chair, where Wanda and Violet was sitting with their legs crossed, staring at him and then at me. I should have known right then and there when Abraham didn't offer to buy me a drink that he was not meant to be on my most wanted list. But boy, oh boy, how wrong I would be. He disappeared into the crowd, although I could see his blue and red and yellow afro from time to time, and then he reappeared and asked me if I had come alone. When I pointed to my girlfriends, that's when he asked me if he could buy all three of us a drink. And Violet said, "Hell yeah." And I kicked her under the table, which meant to pretend like she had some class. And then he and I danced all night and drank all night. And I was so toasted that when he took me by the hand, I followed him into the men's room and inside a stall and fucked him. Wanda and Violet dragged me out to the parking lot right before the club closed, and he followed, asking for my number. And I remember thinking his name sure was appropriate because he looked like he had just stepped right out of the Bible. I wrote my phone number on his long arm, but he was so dark and hairy he couldn't read it, so I wrote it on both palms. He called the very next day and asked if he could come over. Back then, we didn't really date because no one had any date money, and dinner was usually a hot dog and a drink at the movies. So the fact that Abraham actually called made me feel special. Of course, Wanda and Violet reminded me the following morning what I had done off the dance floor with the guy whose name I still don't know. But like a fool, I gave him my address and then made something perfectly clear. I am not an alcoholic, and I'm also not a slut. I'm a college student. He said he didn't understand what would make me think he would think that about me. Please. Playing hard to get was a complete waste of time, and at 19, I really just wanted to get laid in a horizontal position. This time, not only did I want to remember it, but my fingers were crossed that Abraham would be able to make me feel and act like those women in the movies who's drowning in ecstasy. I was hoping he had the skills to make me slither, grit my teeth, dig my fingernails into his back, cause me to look like I was in agonizing pain, when in fact, it was just the opposite, and pretty much lose my mind. It would also be great if he told me he loved me. What? You're just meeting this man. Uh-oh. Since no one ever had, and I wouldn't even care if he meant it. Red flag. When I opened the door, I almost couldn't breathe. All I remember thinking was, thank you, Jesus. Because my blackout was gone, and I instantly remember how unbelievably beautiful his lips were, and how white and straight his teeth were, and how long and hairy his arms were, and how shiny and black his afro was, and mustache and goatee were. And he even smelled heavenly. He handed me a purple hydrangea he'd stolen from someone's yard. We sat on my cheap tweed sofa, which was really a love seat. My studio was small. My bed folded up into the wall. I remember being nervous, and I figured we should talk about something light, something that would put us in a mood, which turned out to be the fog in San Francisco. He pretended to be interested in what I was majoring in, and I lied, and I told him architect because it wouldn't make him think I was too smart to handle, even though I knew it was going to be biology or physics or something in the physical science. I remember not caring what his major was, because tonight it was going to be me, Georgia Louise Young. We both knew why I let him come over, and I figured I'd find out his last name when I needed to know it. I remembered you were always supposed to have a bottle of wine in the fridge in case you had unexpected guests. So with my fake ID, I dashed to the corner and brought a bottle of cheap white wine that claimed to have a real grapes in it. This night would be a turning point in my life. After that first time with Darnell and then with Patrick and Jimmy, I just liked the fact that we were naked and trying to move in sync until we, or I should say they, in a matter of minutes, acted like they were being electrocuted and then suddenly collapsed on me. I never even broke a sweat and wondered when and if I was ever going to tremble like that. After the wine, Abraham took me straight to heaven. He seduced me just like in the movies. I will never forget the way those big hands gently slid my bra straps down my arm. That's when I stopped thinking. I remember not having time to turn off the lights. I remember being kissed like I was a baby and then a grown woman. And I remember him picking me up from my love seat and laying me down on the floor, on top of my thick shag carpet. And he kissed me slower than slow, and I started to move like I was in a race because I was trying to prove to him that I was just as good as a lay sober as I was drunk. But he whispered in my ear, "Slow, baby, slow down." And I didn't know what speed that was, so I said, "Show me." And he put those hands on my hips and moved me like I was a slow roller coaster. And then the lights went off, and I started losing control over my own body. At first, I was embarrassed, and then when I started shaking and shivering, and I yelled out, "Oh, God," and Abraham said, "It's all right, baby." And then he got stronger and moved faster and collapsed on me and started kissing me everywhere like I was something precious. I had what felt like aftershocks, and Abraham held me and said, "It's all right, baby, I got you." And yes, he did. And finally, I understood what all the hoopla was about and knew without a doubt I wanted to feel like that as often as possible. Did you like that, baby? Can you bottle it up? He laughed like he was fully aware of his sexual power. All I knew was that I wanted to do it again just to see if I'd get the same results. And in the weeks and months that followed, I would discover I could have 3 and sometimes 4 of these magical moments back to back. It wasn't like I was trying. Abraham had become my real-life black Ken doll, and I wanted to keep him. However, despite my being smart enough to get a full scholarship, it had started to become increasingly clear that I was not that bright when it came to men. I thought they wanted a girl to be Wonder Woman. And me, like a damn fool, once Abraham started calling out my name during sex, I believe this to be a spiritual connection. A spiritual connection could occur between us, and thus a sign of love. Abraham came over almost every day that first week, before and after his classes. Then one night we were lying on my Murphy bed and he was kissing my earlobes and said, "Look at all these goosebumps on your arms. I think I might be allergic to you, girl." And I said, "That's impossible. I'm hypoallergenic." "I like you," he said. "You're quick, feisty. I've got better qualities, but I can't let you see them all at once." "I'll wait," he said. A week or so later, I finally asked him, "What's your major, Abraham?" Did I give you the impression I was in college? I just looked at him like he was joking. "I'm serious as a heart attack. What's your major?" It was horticulture. Was? I felt like I've been conned. I sat up, moved away from him. All of a sudden, Abram felt too big for this room. He was really too big for me too, because I felt small in his arms. Not safe, just small. He didn't put his arms around me with tenderness. He pulled me into him like he was an octopus. I was going to San Francisco State, but then my mom got sick and I had to work, so I've been on leave for 2 semesters. "What's wrong with your mom?" "I'd rather not get into it," he said, as if she had some type of embarrassing illness, which made absolutely no sense. I would learn later that his sick mother was not only healthy, but worked in the lingerie department at Macy's in Union Square. That, and at 25 and not 22 like he told me he was, Abraham still lived at home, had 3 younger siblings, all of whom, as I would also learn, were in or had graduated from various universities in Northern and Southern California. "Well, I hope she's going to be okay," I said. "I pray every day," he said. "Why do you hang out around a college campus if you're not enrolled?" "I don't hang out around a college campus. These clubs are open to the public. Plus, I live very close to here." "What do you do all day when you're not caring for your mother?" "Are you interrogating me?" "I want to know, Abraham." "I work part-time for a nursery." "Really? What do you do there?" "I sell plants." I wasn't trying to be difficult. I just wanted to know how he earned a living, or if his sick mother was taking care of herself since he'd been spending so much time with me. I was also hoping he wouldn't ask me to meet her, because my gut was already telling me we were probably not heading down any aisle except maybe at the grocery store. He picked up the remote. "I have to study for an exam," I said. "Don't let me stop you," he said, and took off his shoes. Oh, he getting comfortable. "I think you might not be able to spend the night, Abraham. I have to study, and I can't do it with the television on." Have you ever tried? No, because it doesn't make much sense. Try it and see what happens. I need to be able to concentrate, I said, sitting at my scratched up wooden desk in the ugly brown chair I brought at the garage sale. The next thing I knew, he reached into his shirt pocket and whipped out a joint and lit it. A few hits of this and you won't have any problems concentrating, Miss G. I don't smoke marijuana, and I think you should have asked if I mind before you lit it. I'm sorry, baby. I respect you and your crib, he said, but not before taking 2 deep hits. You should at least just take a puff or two. It's not like you're doing drugs. I promise you. If you don't like it, I'll never ask you again. And he handed the joint to me. I also didn't like the way it smelled, and how anyone who didn't smoke real cigarettes could inhale smoke was beyond me. But I was about to find out. I didn't feel comfortable holding this thing and wasn't sure exactly how to inhale. And of course, Abraham gave me yet another tutorial. I almost choked to death after the first attempt because the smoke was hot and made the back of my throat feel like it was on fire. He encouraged me to take 1 deep breath, 1 deep puff, and hold it in. So I did. And the smoke traveled down on top of my esophagus and did a U-turn up into where my brain was supposed to be. At first, it felt like fireworks, and then I began to feel like I was floating down a stream. I liked it, and I took another puff and studied my ass off. The next morning, however, I would fail my very first Spanish exam because I would not remember how to conjugate anything except Abraham. Can I move in? Abraham asked one night. This, after not so much as having walked outside for 3 days. This was during spring break, if I remember correctly. I was now addicted to him because I loved all the anytime I wanted it sex. It was like having my very own action figure, and all I had to do was wind him up. Sex was my new major. Ooh. As much as I was in love with Abraham's body, I knew I wasn't in love with him. He only made me feel good from the waist down. But to be perfectly honest, he had also started getting on my nerves. First of all, he wasn't the most stimulating conversationalist. When I would come in from philosophy or computer class and try to explain that some guys were developing new ways to use computers, he wasn't all that intrigued or even interested. He acted like he was afraid of books. He didn't seem very concerned about what was going on in the world, and he changed the channel when the news came on. I changed it back. I should have known he was missing a few links, the way he went into a trance watching anything that had to do with murder, combat, espionage, fire, floods, and horses. This is precisely when I had to admit that Abraham was not that bright. In fact, he was boring as hell when fully dressed. I knew he was probably never going to appreciate the world that fascinated me and the role I might one day play in it. And there was no way in hell I was going to allow him to drag me down to his level. Girl, that's good. Which was simply the mezzanine, but had started to feel more and more like the basement. Did you hear me? Yes, I heard you. And no, you cannot move in, I said firmly. Why not? Because my apartment is too small. He was 6'3", 6'6" if I included his afro. Then let's get a bigger one. But I don't want to move, Abe. Please don't call me Abe. I've asked you on quite a few occasions not to, because it makes me feel like Abe Lincoln. Abraham, I don't want to live with you. Why not? Because my grades are dropping. And you're blaming that on me? I'm blaming it on me, Georgia. I thought you said you loved me. I love a lot of things about you. What's the difference? I don't know how to answer that. I shouldn't have had to break this shit down to him. I had already begun to make the distinction between dynamic sex and love. One lasted a few minutes. The other was supposed to last years. My mama used to say, a man can make you forget your last name. True. So far, I was glad I still remembered mine. However, being with Abraham had started making me feel like I was shrinking and losing my focus. At that point in time, all I really wanted was what I could control, and that was getting a bachelor's degree. My GPA had dropped, and I was not about to go into my junior year with anything lower than a 3.5, period. Which is precisely what I would end up missing for 2 months, my period. I was too afraid to tell Abraham. On a night he wouldn't go home, I just sat there and looked at him while he watched Sanford and Son. He was so engaged he didn't even know I was studying him. He really wasn't all that handsome. In fact, he was starting to favor Abraham Lincoln. It was creepy. Every time he laughed, I started noticing that his teeth were getting beiger and that they only looked white because of his mustache and because he was also the color of a double espresso. Those lips, which had been so soft and warm and juicy and tender, now seemed to need more and more chapstick. I also started realizing he wasn't as concerned about personal hygiene as he should have been. The list of things about him that were getting on my nerves kept growing. But it's also very hard to tell someone you've been having for dessert almost every single day and night that your taste buds were changing. It ain't hard. I didn't want to have Abraham's baby. I didn't want to have anybody's baby while I was still in college. I was too scared to have a baby. It would change the entire course of my life, and it would also mean I'd always be connected to him. Wanda went with me. On the way to the clinic, she had to pull over 3 times because I couldn't stop throwing up. What I was about to do terrified me, but I did it and was grateful I wouldn't remember any of it right after I started counting backwards. I pretended to be mad at Abraham for 2 whole weeks, even though he wouldn't stop bothering me. He apologized for whatever it was he'd done. Although he was an amazing joyride, I also knew he wasn't the only tall, handsome black man in the world with a penis worthy of a gold medal. Instead of inviting him over to my apartment, I asked if he'd meet me at this amazing vegetarian restaurant that was the reason I was beginning to turn back on hamburgers. When Abraham walked in, he was wearing an army green fatigue jacket. Everyone in the place seemed to notice him. He was one sexy militant who looked like he lived by his own personal constitution, like he stood for something important. When he bent down to kiss me, I turned my head and his lips brushed my left cheek. So it's like that then, huh? His voice didn't match the way he looked. It was too soft for a man his size. Something else I hadn't noticed before. Can I buy you lunch, he asked. Sure, I said. Everything here is meatless. Yes, it is, he said. Yes, it is. We didn't talk. We simply chewed. After he'd eaten every single piece of the thick wheat bread, he stood up, looked down at me, and let out a long sigh. I think we just met at the wrong time. I looked up into his black eyes. I don't know if that's true or not, Abraham, but I have appreciated what we've shared. He chuckled. Can I at least give you a goodbye kiss? He asked. I nodded. He bent down and kissed me softly on my forehead and then on my cheek, and then he pressed his lips against mine for 2 long seconds. Good luck to you, he said, and took a few steps back. You'll probably make some dude a great wife one day, Georgia, and I hope you keep his baby. He knew. Whoop. I went numb. I can still remember how ashamed I felt. I couldn't look at him, even though I felt his eyes on me. I stared down at the mishmash of his plate and closed my eyes until I heard him say, keep the change, and felt the cold air rush in after he walked out the door. I lifted my head, wiped my eyes with my napkins, and watched his thick black afro and those army green shoulders disappear as he got onto the cable car. I hear men know. I'm nervous just thinking about Abraham up. I'm nervous just thinking about looking Abraham up as I sit in front of my old computer. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea. In fact, maybe it's a stupid idea. It is. I sit here for the longest time just staring out the window when I see Naomi and Macy, my next door neighbors, sauntering up the sidewalk. I almost run to the front door. They're both sexy blonde lesbians who love white shirts and black pants and must have every color of slip-on Vans ever made. They got married on the steps of City Hall 2 years ago in San Francisco. I took them to brunch to celebrate. They're also crazy as hell, or I should just say wild and fun. Macy's a curator at the Museum of Modern Art in San Francisco, and Naomi manages a 4.5-star hotel I've yet to stay at. What do you huzzies want? Hey, rascal, I say, and rub her head the way she likes. She's a sweet pit bull. We were wondering if we could borrow $20, Naomi says, and hands me a white box. I know there's something delicious inside because there always is. No, I'm on a diet, so whatever's in that box, I can't eat it. You've been on a diet since we met you. And what year was that, honey? I believe that was 1886, Macy said. So, you will eat this and enjoy it. It's my very own key lime pie. And here, Macy says, handing me what I know will be another invitation to an opening I probably won't attend and do not know why. She must be 6 feet tall and could easily be 40-something runaway model if she just wanted to. I open the envelope. I'm right. Thank you both, and I'll try. You want to come in? No. Our goal was to disturb you. Did we succeed? Yes, and I'm grateful. Now beat it. As I slam the door, I can hear them laughing. This is our way. I'm lucky to have them as my neighbors because the Russian family on the right has never uttered so much a syllable when I say hello or good morning or good evening or happy holidays. They don't like to celebrate, but are very good wavers. I open the box and dig my finger into the mint green pie and scoop out a thick, smooth dollop. It's so good, I do this 3 more times and then make a pot of coffee and push the rest of it into the garbage disposal for obvious reasons. I take my coffee back to my office and find the password I keep hidden with all the other ones inside the big red Webster dictionary and log into Facebook. I've only been on this site twice in 2 years because I have yet to see the point of it. But I understand you can find just about anybody on here, even though until today I haven't been looking for anyone. I'm shocked when I see a photo of someone who looks like I did about 10 years ago. I think Frankie put that picture of me on here when she signed me up. I forgot I had cheekbones and only one chin and a wig that wasn't synthetic. It was actually my hair. I looked happy. I looked good, and I can't remember why. What will I say if I find him? Remember me from the 70s? We spent some time together? That sounds lame, like I'm still stuck in the past. And what if all he says is yes? What if he has nothing else to say to me? What if he thinks I've only gotten in touch because I'm trying to hook back up after 1,000 years? But then again, what if he's still in the Bay Area and happily married and would love to see me? Maybe introduce me to his wife and kids, which I would love. Or what if he wants to meet for a latte after 34 years? I forgot all about the possibilities of seeing him in person. Shit, he would probably think I've let myself go. But I have. According to Frankie, people put their whole lives on Facebook, so I should be able to see what he's done with his. I hope he finished college, but what will I tell him about me? that I've gone through 2 husbands? I wouldn't admit to be traded. I wouldn't admit to being traded in for a newer model or take any responsibility for being a bad judge of character. That I'm a little on the fuller side and I also dye my hair intense auburn to avoid looking at the gray. That I'm an unhappy optometrist looking to make a career change when most people are thinking about retirement. And lie that I'm in a serious relationship, but we're just taking it slow. And what if he asks what made me get in touch with him after all these years? What in the hell will I say that would make any sense? I hit escape, then sleep. Abraham's going to have to wait. Wanda just had to open her big mouth and tell Violet what I'm planning to do, which is why Violet chose to leave me a long, sensitive voicemail message. Have you lost your damn mind, Georgia? You must have. This is about the dumbest shit I've ever heard. What do you hope to gain from it? I say leave the bastards exactly where they belong in the relationship history book. Of course I'm sorry to hear about Raymond, but if I were you, I'd think twice about selling my house in this fucked up economy. But you have yet to take any good advice I've given you, and I don't expect you to start now. So forget everything I just said and do it your way. Bye. I'm with her, cause it's been years, so why? I'm forgetting it right now. I go back on Facebook and type in Abraham's first and last names and push my chair away from my desk 2 or 3 feet and look down at the floor while my heart pounds like a jackhammer. When I glance up at the screen, I cover my mouth because I only see one black face and he's a teenager. I feel somewhat relieved, but then, as if I'm on autopilot, I decide to Google his name, except this time I include his middle name, which I didn't even know I remembered. Well, I'm pretty sure Abraham wasn't a soldier in 1898, and he didn't drive a tractor trailer in North Carolina, nor did he play the jazz trumpet with Jimmy Smith, and I'm hoping, for his sake, that the parking summons warning waiting for him in Alabama isn't him. Maybe Abraham is dead too, Wanda said. We're getting off the exit right past hundreds of houseboats where Violet had lived for years. Black people don't live on boats. We live on land. Don't say that, I say. Wanda's driving, which is a mistake because she's not good at staying in her lane. Everybody can be found somewhere on the internet. Apparently that's not true. Did you ever meet any of his relatives? I shake my head. Not even his mama? I shake my head again. Then he's probably in prison. I don't want to think either one could be true. What would you have said to him anyway? I don't exactly know. Yes, you do, she says. I don't feel like telling you, Wanda, especially since it didn't happen. But you weren't even in love with Abraham, if I remember correctly. I didn't put that label on it back then, but I actually think I was. He scared me, and I scared myself. But so what? I'll be forever grateful to him for generating my first orgasm. You don't forget that. That's for sure. Now, not to skip the subject, but I'm skipping the subject for a minute. Have you done anything about the house yet, or are you already getting cold feet? I can't lie. Ever since I decided to do this, I've been nervous as hell. But I've been telling myself it's normal to be scared when you're about to make a major change in your life. So, to answer your question, I've interviewed 3 realtors and I think I've settled on one. That's my girl, she says, giving me a high five right before she pulls into the parking space. Before us, there was nothing but sexy white sailboats and fat yachts rocking in their berth. Behind us are steep green hills full of hip houses, some with giant windows jutting out and some on stilts that you couldn't pay me to live in, view or no view. Well, they all basically said what I already know, that because of the economy, the real estate market is taking a beating, so it could be up to a year before the house sells. But I'm not in a rush. I've still got some other things to figure out. I think it's exciting that you don't feel too old to do this. Seriously, I'm proud as hell of you, if you want to know the truth. Why, thank you, huzzy. Hurry up, our reservation is in 5 minutes. We finally jump out of the car and walk as fast as we could past shop after beautiful shop. I don't bother looking. Wanda doesn't either, because she wouldn't dream of buying anything over here since the prices are way too high for her. So, who do you want to look for next? She asks. Listen, I'm not thinking about men right now. I'm thinking about Lobster. What about Brad? He doesn't count. Why not? You lived with him for 3 long months. I started laughing. We were roommates. You slept in the same bedroom with that roommate. He stole money from me. Plus, I didn't love him. What? I just never told you or Violet. You know, we didn't like his ass anyway. He was below you, and he looked sneaky with those little bird eyes. He was a waste of a perfectly good summer. It was $48. Delete him from your list. I don't have a list. Well, why don't you make one? First of all, Wanda, I'm only interested in finding the men I was in love with, not the ones I just slept with. I'll bet you $100 you can't count the ones you screwed. You are starting to piss me off. You can't even name them, can you? Because that list is probably too damn long, ho. How many are on your list, huzzy? 2, because I found what I needed early. Anyway, I know who you love, but I want to hear you say them just in case I miss some, since you were so sneaky. Okay then, Oliver, David, Eric, Carter, and Lance. See what I mean? Who in the hell are Carter and Lance? Well, like Ray, they didn't know I was in love with them. Why not? Forget it, Wanda. Let me just say this. Since you obviously don't get it, you can fall in love in a nanosecond, and there's really nothing you can do about it. Yeah, and how's that work? I'm not even going to bother explaining it, but there's a reason so many of us act like we're possessed. Speak for yourself. Why aren't you including the ex-husbands? You did love them, if I remember correctly. Because I still hate Michael. You couldn't possibly after all these years, Georgia. He cheated on me, and he's the father of one of your children. He was a mistake. She wasn't. Where is he these days? Last I heard, he moved to Chicago to work for some big 8 firm. Estelle doesn't talk to me about him because she knows it'll make me break out in hives. Wanda shoves me through the door of the restaurant, which looks like the lower level of a giant old sailboat completed with portholes, thick wooden walls, long rubber sharks, and silver fish hanging on them. We can see straight out to the deck, which juts out over the water. And Niles, can you use social media when you're behind bars? Shouldn't he be out by now? Anyway, I think you should start with the husbands and get them over with. Find out if Niles is a free man, but Michael should be next. Is this a directive, Lieutenant Jeffries? Look, this whole mission was your bright idea. So if you're going to do it in a chronological order. That way you can see when and how and why you made such bad choices in men, which might help explain why you're still lost and confused. Ooh. Go straight to hell, Wanda, I say laughing. Been there once, didn't like it. Look, in all honesty, I don't really care what Michael's doing or who he's doing it with. In fact, I think I'll skip him. You are such a hypocrite. I thought you said you wanted to get a new perspective, forgive them or yourself, and maybe tie up some loose ends. I did, but I think these would be called knots. And that's the end of that chapter. Woo, child. I don't know if she gonna get any answers that she looking for, because she keep saying she want to. She keep remembering the things that's going on. And I think she's getting her answers in her memories. And it's a good thing so far, the two that she's looking for can't be found. And yeah, so I'm still I can't wait to see if anybody she's gonna reach out to she gonna find to be able to talk, and what that discussion gonna be. So until the next chapter, bye.